Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and my law firm assists professionals with employment contract issues. Today I'm going to talk about what is a full-time contract position. So, in my mind, if you're working in a contract position, then you're an independent contractor. And usually as an independent contractor, you are brought in to do a specific task for a specific amount of time. I'd say more and more now that people are working remote, contract positions are, I guess, more prevalent than they used to be. There's some different categories of being in a contract position. So, for instance, let's say I wanted to have a website built and I used, Upwork or online jobs or something like that to find somebody. It would be a limited scope of what they're doing for me. It would take a limited amount of time, and that would then, make them have a contract position that was part-time. Now, if you are a full-time or in a full-time contract position, the only thing that really differentiates you from someone else is they have employees that are paid as W-2 employees. At the end of the year, they'll receive a W-2, which shows all the compensation that they received and all the taxes that were taken out. Whereas if you're in a full-time contract position, you're classified as an independent contractor, and then at the end of the year, you're going to receive a 1099. And as a contractor, no taxes will be taken out of any of the compensation that you receive. So at the end of the year, when you file your taxes, you are responsible for paying the state and federal taxes associated with any compensation that you received. Many times, if someone is acting in a contract position or as an independent contractor, which are really the same thing effectively, they can transition into a full-time permanent position. But in that scenario, it's extremely likely that you'll then transition from an independent contractor into an employee, as I said before, where you receive the W-2. Well, what are the benefits of both? Well, in a contract position, at least if you're doing part-time work, you can work for whoever you want, whenever you want. Your schedule's completely up to yourself. Whereas if you're working as a full-time contract position, you're going to sign an independent contractor agreement of some sort. And then in that agreement, it's going to state what the expectations are as far as your time commitment to the organization you're working with. And so many of those agreements will state you can't have outside employment without some kind of written approval from the organization you're working with. So, kind of the entire point of being an independent contractor is for it to be kind of quick in, quick out, can work for multiple people at the same time. Whereas as an employee, especially as a professional, there's almost always some kind of either exclusivity or outside activities provision, which would then prevent the professional from working in multiple locations or for multiple organizations at the same time without written approval from the employer. So keep that in mind. One of the main differences between being an employee versus a contractor is just that you're going to have some restrictions based upon who you can work for and when you can work. Now, one other consideration as a employee and a contractor, especially as a full-time contract position, there very likely will be some kind of restrictive covenants in whatever agreement that you signed. Restrictive covenants prohibit the independent contractor from doing certain activities during or after the contract ends. The most common restrictive covenants: non-compete, non-solicit, non-disparagement. For most people, the non-compete is the most important part. And yes, you can't have a non-competition clause in an independent contractor agreement. There are a few states where non-competes are completely unenforceable, so I would check with whatever state you're in that makes certain that you're not in one of those states. And so even if you did sign a non-compete in one of those states, it's very likely it would be unenforceable. However, the vast majority of states do have some kind of enforceable non-compete either through their case law or in their administrative code or statutes, regulations, or it's called different things in different states. So be very careful about how it's worded. I find that for some of the healthcare professions, it's much more limited, whereas if you're in sales, it could be very broad, meaning like they want to knock you out from the entire state of doing things for similar employers. So what you want to do for any non-compete is get it as specific as possible, meaning the scope of it should be the specific thing that you're doing for that organization. So if you are in software sales as an independent contractor, then it needs to say you can't work in software sales, not any sales. Or if you're in a full-time contract position doing IT work or doing graphic design or whatever, it needs to say specifically what you're doing for that employer. That way you have some options to do some other things after the contract or agreement ends. So that's what it means to be a full-time or in a full-time contract position. If you have any questions about an independent contractor agreement or employment agreement, feel free to contact my law firm at the phone number listed below in the description, or you can reach us through our website, ChelleLaw.com. Anyway, appreciate you watching the video. Thanks.